TIFU by telling an amputee to put both his feet down on the floor while taking his blood pressure. Today I feed up by telling an amputee to put both his feet down on the floor while taking his blood pressure by telling an amputee to put both his feet down on the floor while taking his blood pressure. So I live in a sober living facility with a bunch of veterans, and one who had lost his leg was sitting beside me taking his blood pressure, and I told him that he had to put both feet on the floor. A lot of people thought I was joking and thought it was a very awful thing to say. We were sitting around all taking our blood pressure, but when I caught it and explained that it was an actual mistake, we all laughed about it. TLDR. I live in a sober living community, and I told an amputee to put both legs on the floor while taking his blood pressure. I once asked a double amputee if they could stand for a chest X-ray. My brain was on autopilot, and it's a question I ask everyone in a wheelchair. He said no and pointed down, and we both had a good laugh. I think it's something they might hear a lot. I'm confused. Did you tell an amputee to put both his feet down on the floor while taking his blood pressure by telling an amputee to put both his feet down on the floor while taking his blood pressure? My mom once tried to shake the hand of a guy after he gave us a tour. When she realized he didn't have a hand on that arm, she fist bumped the nub, tears of joy, cold sweat smile. When I was working retail, I had gone up to a customer who was holding a ton of stuff to ask him if he'd like me to set it up at the register. Like I said a million times a day to people, "Hey, do you need a hand?" As soon as the word left my mouth, I realized one of his arms had been amputated right below the elbow. I was so incredibly embarrassed, but he laughed so hard as he told me, "Yeah, clearly I do need a hand. Don't I?" If you apologized and everybody laughed, you should be okay. We all say and do things without thinking them all the way through. And that's a pretty dang easy one to make. My husband, amputee, would have thought it was hilarious. People who have had a limb amputated typically find humor in those kinds of things, as long as they've been an amputee long enough to have gotten through the emotionally tough acceptance that happens in the beginning. I work in a residential facility for disabled folks. One resident is missing his right hand. One day, he was gathering his things to take a shower and was obviously struggling. Without thinking, I asked, "Do you need a hand?" Quote, he looked at me, then down at his arms and back up at me before responding, "No, I got one." There were about 5 seconds of awkward silence before we both burst out laughing. "It's okay, I promise. Honest, mistakes happen." I once used the expression, "a leg up," to an interviewer in a wheelchair as a mobility disability charity. For inexplicable reasons. Possibly because the interviewer later felt a bit bad for laughing at my visible mortification, they gave me the job. Reminds me of the post about a student teacher in the special needs class was teaching a kid with 9 fingers how to subtract using them. He didn't register why putting up all of his fingers, then putting down 5 got the kid counting to 4. I asked a double amputee if he had packed extra socks because I forgot mine. We had a good laugh. That's quite a feat op. Lol. I've asked which arm preference they had when they only had one arm. It happens, and it's just second nature to ask these things. Don't be too bothered. I asked a patient to give me their name and date of birth. They had a track. I once told a guy in a wheelchair to take a seat and his food would be ready shortly.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.